Like, I remember when the money wasn't there, forced me to say you 50, I got you. I gave my lawyer money and everything when I fight my case. I ain't got to get into all that, but bro made sure he made a way for me to be straight.
That's how Lil Durk supported Jam until Jam betrayed him. Now that everything has changed, a new video of Jam pleading for his life has gone viral. It's heartbreaking and raw, and people are wondering if this is the last time we will see Jam, because if there's one thing we know about Durk, it's that this is it. Let's dissect it all, since he doesn't tolerate disloyalty. Jam begs for his life, because if there's one thing we know about Durk, it's that he was one of Lil Durk's most devoted troops before he may have been the rat who took down the entire enterprise, obtains retribution. But before we get into the federal case drama and the reasons why people are demanding Jam's head, we must examine the details that most people ignore, because this isn't just a random guy who got caught up. Rather, it was family, and the culture is supposed to be loyal. Based upon, but occasionally, the most genuine discourse can come from those closest to you. We're talking about childhood friends from the Chi men who grew up in the same neighborhoods. So Jam and Lil Durk's relationship dates back to before any of us even knew who these cats were, experiencing the same hardships, poverty, and violence that mold young men in these streets. In a 2023 interview with DJ Jerry Jam, Jam recounted how, before he became famous, Durk was like a brother to him, performing music for neighborhood get-togethers and block parties.
Like, I remember when the money wasn't there, forced me to say you 50, I got you.
Back when Durk was just another young Chicagoan trying to make a name for himself with his rapping abilities. They weren't thinking about record deals, federal cases, or anything else serious. They were just neighbors watching out for one another and working hard together in the hopes of leaving the neighborhood together. But then life arrived. And life in Chicago is no joke. In 2010, when Jam was just 17 years old and barely legal, he was caught in an attempted murder case and received a 12-year sentence. We won't go into the details of what happened. That's between him and the streets, but what matters is what happened next. When you're in this situation, most friendships end. The reality of life on the streets is that homeboys are locked up for more than 10 years, while most people move on, make new friends, prioritize new things, and live new lives. The letters stop coming, the phone calls get shorter, and the visits stop happening. However, Durk Nahomi was different, because his career took off and he started earning real money. Establishing his empire, we're not talking about merely keeping him on the books or sending some commissary money. We're talking about the kind of loyalty that legends are made of. Throughout Jam's entire 12-year bid, Lil Durk offered support. That was simply unheard of real talk that most rappers won't. Even helping their own blood relatives in prison is something they do. But Durk was moving, and this guy was paying for legal bills. And you know how costly excellent lawyers are, especially in situations like attempted murder.
Gave my lawyer money and everything when I fight my case. I ain't got to get into all that, but bro made sure.
Durk had a comprehensive welcome home package waiting for Jam when he eventually left the prison gates in February 2022, but the financial support was only the beginning. We're talking about the kind of homecoming that most people only dream about. Durk got him a home, but it wasn't just any home. After more than 10 years in prison, he bought Jam a car so he could travel freely, manage his business, and begin rebuilding his life. However, Durk still wasn't satisfied, so he gave Jam a place to sleep, rebuild his life, and have some stability. More than $50,000 in cash as a gift to welcome home Durk simply handed out $50,000, which is more money than most people see in a year, as if it were nothing, since he valued his devotion so highly.
He said, Jam get out that jam and give him 50, he ain't gotta ask again, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? He ain't gotta ask, bro.
This kind of devotion was so uncommon and sincere that Durk even made a musical allusion to it, particularly on King Von's song, Back Again, where he rapped Jam, I handed him 50. So you don't need to ask again. get out of that jam. Consider Durk publicly praised Durk's allegiance by saying, "Bro played his part, and for social, overplayed it." I love Bro for that. He was so proud of how he kept his homeboy down that he placed it in a song for the world to hear. Jam's thanks sounded genuine as well.
Bro, like, played his part for sure, like, overplayed it. I love Bro for that.
Durk brought Jam into the F family as an artist. And in 2022 and 2023, he featured him on songs like No Complaints and Focus. He was also providing him with a legitimate way to earn money, build a career, and stay out of trouble. Everything seemed ideal. The homie was back at home. He was getting back on his feet. He was a part of a successful organization. And he had the kind of devoted friend that most people on the streets never realized that this was meant to be the happy ending of a tale about true friendship enduring the worst. However, everything changed on October 24, 2024, when Lil Durk was arrested in Florida on federal murder charges, not state charges. Not local beef, but federal charges which can result in life in prison or worse. 5 other members were also involved in a 2022 plot against rapper Quando Rondo that killed Rondo's cousin Servia Lou Pab Robinson. Now, when the federal government gets involved in a case like this, they don't just show up with theories and suspicions. They also bring evidence, recordings, and documentation, the kind of proof that can bury you. But what had everyone on the streets wondering was how in the hell they knew so a great deal about FF's internal operations after Durk's arrest. All eyes were on Jam, and rumors began to circulate that he had been working with authorities, allegedly wearing a wire for years to gather evidence against Durk and other people. That's when the whispers began, and people started asking who had been talking, who had been cooperating, who had been wearing wires, and who had been recording conversations. Hip-hop industry heavyweights like DJ Academics, Wack 100, and Chicago rapper King Yala all began blaming Jam for these serious accusations, which weren't just made by random internet trolls. These guys don't just make accusations lightly. They have connections, sources, and knowledge of things before the general public does.
You know, we learned a lot when all this came out, man. You know, there's been a lot of allegations, you know, about people snitching. You know, so the main person they're talking about snitching is OTF Jam.
The most damaging evidence came in the form of some footage that went viral on October 30th, 2024, allegedly showing Jam acting extremely nervous around Durk. Academics claimed that Jam had been wearing a wire since his 2022 release, while Wack 100 claimed that Jam flipped after being caught with a new gun charge. The theory was that Jam got jammed up again shortly after getting out, and rather than face more prison time, he made a deal with the devil. The comments on social media were harsh, with people dissecting his body language and stating things like, "Damn, they must not be able to read body language because he's moving hella weird." People were speculating that he was wearing recording equipment. Many people interpreted this video as the smoking gun because it showed a man who was obviously uncomfortable and concealing something, not acting like that they saw someone who might have been recording every conversation, meeting, and moment of trust for the federal government instead of the faithful friend he was supposed to be. The legal documents also seemed to support the theory, as an indictment filed in a U.S. district court in Los Angeles suggested that an F member had been acting as a confidential informant. Jam wasn't named specifically, but as everyone knows, these federal cases use initials and code names to safeguard their sources until the trial. At least it wasn't just the legal ramifications that made this alleged betrayal so devastating. It was also the personal betrayal. This wasn't just any random associate or guy from the organization's periphery. It was supposedly family. The cat that Durk had lifted up, supported, trusted, and brought into his inner circle. If the accusations were accurate, then every conversation Jam had with Durk was a betrayal. Consider how chilly it must have been to spend 12 years locked away in your house. After his release, every moment they shared and every piece of information he was granted access to as a trusted member was perhaps being filmed and passed to federal officials. The boy ties you down in ways that most people never encounter. He treats you like a blood brother when he brings you home and you return the favor by assisting the federal authorities in assembling evidence against him in the streets. The kind of treachery that people can never forget or forgive. Social media went crazy with people analyzing every bit of evidence, every rumor, and every theory about what actually happened, and the hip-hop community's response was exactly what you'd expect in a culture where snitching is viewed as worse than murder and cooperating with law. Enforcement can get you permanently blackballed or worse. Some people defended Jam by arguing that there wasn't enough evidence, but the majority of people had already decided that he was a rat. And rats in this culture don't get forgiveness. Let me explain just how deep this rabbit hole goes. Because the evidence that began to surface was shocking, and the street reactions were even more bizarre. Let's start by discussing how the feds were handling this case, because when you start to understand their approach, you can see why people were so certain that they had someone on the inside giving them information. The federal case against Lil Durk wasn't just about a single incident. Rather, it was about a whole criminal enterprise that used violence to conduct business. The details of what allegedly happened were explained. Down is crazy. 5 men associated with F, according to the feds, tracked and followed Quando Rondo around Los Angeles on August 19, 2022, as if they were hunting him. They followed his black Cadillac Escalade with 2 different cars, and when they caught him at a gas station, they fired at least 18 rounds, including shots from a fully automatic weapon. His relative was killed, but Wando was unharmed. Here's what had everyone was wondering: how the feds knew so much about the preparation, coordination, and fallout. Several industry insiders say that the reason they had such detailed information about what was supposed to be a covert operation was because they had a snitch in the crew. Wack 100 didn't hold back when he revealed what he believed to be the true situation, saying, "There's a guy named F Jam that was wired." Very ironic name. Jam got him in. The Jam, since Wack 100, has been around long enough to understand how these things operate. You had better pay attention when he starts discussing federal cases and snitches. Wacko stated in the interview that he kept it real for 12 years, brought him automobiles, gave him $50,000. He also mentioned that he had no smudges on his record and had never been a rat or been caught in a gun case. But in the end, he reversed the timeline that Wack had previously described. Laid out was extremely suspicious. He claimed that Jam had been wearing a wire for 2 years straight. From the time he was released from prison in 2022 to Durk's arrest in 2024. He was released in 2022, which coincided with the Quando incident. And he had been wearing a wire for the previous 2 years, from 22 to 24. Naturally, he became enmeshed in the situation right away. Welcome Home Party incorporated him into the family by purchasing him homes and vehicles with $50,000 in cash, even though he may have been keeping records for the federal government. Every meeting, every chat, and every instance of true brotherhood may have been tainted by covert recording devices. Jam's purported assistance was motivated by basic self-preservation. Wack 100 asserted that Jam chose to flip rather than serve more time in prison because he discovered a new weapons case after being released. Although the specifics of this new legal issue have mostly been kept under wraps, records indicate that Jam was arrested in May 2023 on a warrant related to his prior case. However, the thing about cats who have served their time is that they will do anything to avoid going back. 12 years is a long time to be imprisoned, and once you experience freedom again, the idea of going back to a cell can make you do things you never would have thought you'd do. King Yella, who is familiar with the streets of Chicago, was better than most at dissecting some of the psychology that could have led to Jam making such a terrible decision.
OTF didn't help when OTF Jam baby mama was murdered while he was locked up, and it had him thinking the worst about that situation.
There were rumors that Durk ordered the murder of Court Sir James' baby mama, Octavia Redmond, who was shot and killed on July 19, 2024. Allegedly, after Durk discovered that Jam was assisting a 15-year-old who was charged with her murder. There is no concrete evidence connecting Durk OTF to the crime, but the timing of the incident raised serious concerns. It was rumored that Jam's baby mama had called Durk for legal assistance when Jam learned of his new case, but Durk, allegedly, disregarded her calls. If this is accurate, it could be the reason why Jam began to feel that F wasn't truly family after all. King Yola explained how these circumstances can make even the closest of friends into adversaries.
I done did my last bid 4 years, but they ain't do shit. So certain, I felt the type of way when I knew you had money. Not meaning that I want to do some snake to you like that, but in my head, maybe, not no snitch, but I might want to do something.
Viewpoint demonstrates the complexity of these street relationships. Even when someone shows you love and loyalty, resentment can grow if you start to feel as though they aren't there when you need them most. In Jam's case, this resentment may have made him susceptible to federal pressure, but the evidence of his purported cooperation went far beyond rumors and theories. Prosecutors say their informant's recordings were crucial in establishing the case. Against Durk, it wasn't just about having someone on the inside. It was also about having someone who could offer the kind of hard evidence that can be used in federal court. Things became even more bizarre when a song purportedly recorded by Jam appeared online with lyrics that appeared to allude to Durk and violence. According to some blogs, the alleged lyrics, which were essentially a diss track that included lines like "Smirk is the voice you heard. What he said, so bullets behind it. We ain't F to tussle and only be rapping to kill me. A rapper, so fornicators will have something to put in their music." People on social media went crazy over these lyrics, interpreting them as evidence that Jam was disloyal with posts. However, no one was able to confirm whether the recording was authentic or not. It is still up for debate whether the claim that Jam allegedly released a song snitching on Chicago rapper Lil Durk and other suspects involved in the King Von Get Back hit was true or simply misinterpreted. The situation became so heated that someone even posted fake news on social media saying that Jam had been shot and killed. The rumor was disproved, but it demonstrated how much rage and scrutiny Jam was under. The hood even turned the situation into jokes and memes. A video purportedly showing Jam eating McDonald's during a federal interrogation led to social media users mocking him with remarks like, "Bro snitched on Dirt for a Big Mac and fries." The fact that people were so quick to believe and spread news about his death demonstrated just how much hatred the allegations had generated. Although that may sound trivial, the hip-hop community uses humor and cultural commentary to deal with these kinds of betrayals, which further isolates people who break the code. For months following Durk's imprisonment, Jam remained silent, neither confirming nor refuting the rumors that circulated about him due to his lack of social media presence and public appearances, which further exacerbated the situation. As Durk sat in federal custody facing the prospect of life in prison if found guilty, the evidence against him seemed substantial, and much of it seemed to come from insider sources who had intimate knowledge of how truth, lies, and federal ties operated. This only served to fuel further speculation about his whereabouts and the true role he played in the case. In December 2024, F Jam finally spoke up. "When the discovery comes out, you're going to see that I'm not how the feds got onto us or built their case. I'm going to let the paperwork come out because it's going to tell it all." However, Jam didn't just deny the allegations and leave it at that. He made a bold statement on Instagram stories, denying that he lied to Durk and saying that the real truth would come out when the legal documents were released. He went into offensive mode and began blaming others, including the man who had shown him all that loyalty. He essentially threw Durk under the bus by saying that he shouldn't have gone to the crime scene if he didn't want to be implicated. That statement alone had people's heads spinning. This is the same cat that was talking about gang underscore for 2 years. And now he's essentially claiming that Durk brought his legal issues upon himself is not the kind of reaction you would expect from someone who is meant to be a devoted family member. Jam also attacked other crew members, such as Boona and Jerry, accusing them of spreading untrue rumors about him. He even targeted some women, such as Lexio and Nikki Nicole. This man was essentially destroying relationships with everyone by acting as though he felt deceived. The most significant aspect of Jam's statement was his assurance that, once the legal discovery documents were made public, they would establish his innocence and reveal the identity of the person who actually provided the feds with their information. This was a daring assertion that put everything on a timeline. Either the documents would prove his innocence or they would further bury him. The street's response to Jam's statement was divided as regardless of where people stood. Everyone was now waiting for those promised documents to drop. While some intriguing developments in Durk's legal case started supporting some of Jam's claims, the prosecution started making my suit. My only lipstick, my only lipstick. Ruby kiss, ruby kiss. Ruby kiss, only ruby. Kiss, only ruby kiss. Has my suit. Oh, my suit has the lug lies. Ruby kiss has lied my suit. Some people saw it as a desperate attempt by a guilty man to shift blame and create reasonable doubt, while others began to wonder if perhaps the story was more complicated than it first appeared, revealing flaws when they eliminated references to Durk's song lyrics from a superseding indictment in May 2025. Durk's legal team had been claiming that the prosecution had essentially misled the grand jury by presenting Wonderful Wayne and Jackie Boy lyrics as proof, even though the song had been recorded 7 months prior to the incident. This was noteworthy because it suggested that the prosecution's case might not be as strong as it seemed, bulletproof as they first claimed. But if they were prepared to throw aside data that had been essential to their initial presentation, it made one wonder what other aspects of their case might be predicated on fragile foundations. Professor Eric Nielsen, who specializes in the use of rap lyrics in court proceedings, strongly criticized the prosecution's strategies, calling their use of Durk's lyrics dangerously sloppy and claiming that the most intriguing development came from legal observers who saw significant changes in the prosecution's presentation of their case in the superseding indictment they filed. Prosecutors were treating artistic expression like literal confessions without doing proper fact-checking. And when academic experts called out federal prosecutors for being careless, that didn't look good for the government's case. Deleted paragraph 9 entirely from the initial allegations. The original indictment's paragraph 9, which explicitly outlined the murder-for-hire payment structure, has been deleted, according to Wacko. According to paragraph 9, defendant Wilson would pay the bounty or monetary reward and/or arrange for payment to be made for the killing of Senior, or Lil Durk, on behalf of defendant Banks. Associates, in essence, the indictment no longer includes the murder-for-hire paragraph. This was a significant removal because it implied that the evidence the feds used to prove Durk paid for the hit may not have been as strong as they initially believed. To understand why this whole situation is so important in hip-hop culture, we had to examine other cases where rappers' crews alleged lighter turned on them. This kind of betrayal has occurred previously, and the results are invariably disastrous. The most well-known instance was 6ix9ine's involvement with the 9 Trey Gangster Bloods. After being charged with RICO, 6ix9ine completely changed his mind and testified against his former associates in order to have his sentence reduced. His cooperation with the prosecution was clear and public, which resulted in his permanent isolation in the hip-hop community and a living example of what happens when you break the code. Gunna's case in the YSL RICO case demonstrated how even legal actions might be interpreted by the culture as cooperating with law enforcement. When Gunna accepted an offer plea in December 2022, he was required to testify in court that YSL is a gang and a music label, and that he had first-hand knowledge that YSL members or associates have committed offenses in support of the organization.
YSL is a music label and a gang, and you have personal knowledge that members or associates of YSL have committed crimes in furtherance of the gang.
Yes, ma'am.
Major rappers like Lil Durk, Lil Baby, Meek Mill, and Polo G unfollowed Gunna on social media and essentially treated him like someone who cooperated, despite his insistence that he wasn't. His career took a serious hit, and he's still working to restore his reputation in the culture. But the OTF Jam situation was different from both of these situations. Gunna did not enter into a formal plea agreement where he made admissions in court. Instead, the accusations against Jam were primarily based on rumors, speculation, and circumstantial evidence. In contrast to 6ix9ine, there was no public testimony or express collaboration that anybody could refer to. However, the absence of hard evidence did not prevent the streets from making judgments. Hip-hop won. The accusations against Jam began to circulate. Many people simply accepted them as fact without waiting for actual evidence because society is already wary of anyone who might assist law enforcement. The situation became even more complicated when Durk's trial was postponed until October 2025 because of the complexity of the case, which included over 230 gigabytes of digital evidence and 20,000 reports in the form of pages. While all of this legal drama was unfolding, Jam's whereabouts became a mystery, with people speculating that he was avoiding Chicago due to safety concerns between the cooperation allegations and the murder of his child's mother. This meant that those discovery documents that Jam had promised would clear his name might not become public for months or even years. Target from several perspectives. The case's wider ramifications extend far beyond the individuals involved. It emphasizes the precarious situation that members of street-oriented hip-hop culture find themselves in when they must choose between survival and loyalty. King Yila explained the psychology of these circumstances in a way that made perfect sense.
And you got images. My OTF try to, you see, you know the GD, like, we don't give I ain't got no filter. You do something, I'm calling you out for it. That's why what it is. That's how we was raised anyway. Yep. Try to keep they together so they won't look bad.
This observation demonstrates how the pressure to uphold one's reputation and street credibility can occasionally clash with the reality of spending decades in federal prison. Hip-hop's celebration of unwavering loyalty doesn't always align with the difficult choices people must make when the authorities show up. Charleston White, who never holds back his controversial opinions, offered his thoughts on the matter with his trademark, unfiltered style.
Nobody laughing at Durk like they were laughing at me when I went to jail. Lord have mercy. So ain't nobody laughing at Durk. Now it ain't funny. Now your favorite rapper go to jail and look like he got a no bond like me.
Even though White's commentary was always thought-provoking, it also represented a larger discussion in the hip-hop community about the repercussions of combining street life with mainstream success and the accountability that comes with influence. As we await the case's resolution, important questions remain, including whether the discovery documents that Jam promised will actually offend him, or will they divulge even more damaging details? What will this entire situation mean for the culture of loyalty and brotherhood that has been at the heart of hip-hop since its inception? Will Durk's legal team be able to successfully contest the prosecution's case, or will the federal government's resources prove to be too much? Most importantly, what will this whole situation mean for the culture of loyalty and brotherhood? Whatever happens in court, the harm to relationships and reputations is already done. In this video, click on the cards that appear on your screen to see how the trust that made. Durk and Jam's relationship, so meaningful, has been destroyed by accusations and suspicions that may never be fully resolved. The bond between Durk and Jam was once regarded as an example of unbreakable loyalty and true brotherhood.